I hope he hasn't got cold feet on me. Oh, here he comes now. Now may the Lord put his words on his heart and on his lips, that he may wordily proclaim what he has to say and open our hearts to receive it. So. I would just like this story of mine about my blessed mother taking her lost child to the mercy of her son Jesus. "5 years ago, this would be, if somebody had told me this would be impossible. Today, this is my birthday. What a gift the Blessed Mother has given to me this day. This is really my story is really about the lost child. It really started off last night. I'll just give you my wife. I'm married, and my wife's name is Mary, and I've got 5 children. The oldest girl, Catherine, is 21, and Tony, his son, at 20, Geraldine at 18, and Anne-Marie at 12, and Martin. There's 3 of my children here today, 2 couldn't come. But it really started off last night, this whole occasion. My son came home last night. He was out speaking at schools, and evangelizing around schools. And he couldn't come today, and he says, "Daddy, come here," he says. And he put his arm around me, and he told me how much he loved me. That's what this is all about today, is love. So I'd just like to share first about the faith. How I got my faith and how I lost my faith. There's one thing God had given me from the word go, was a heart and giving. I learned the giving from my mother, my own mother, but I know she's looking down at me today. God rest her. But when I was baptized, I came into the faith. My mother and father always was very strict in the faith. I was brought up, I lived out in the country. I'm living in Belfast now, but I was from Tyrone, out in the country. I used to come in walking, making my first confession. I walking 5 miles to make my first confession. And that's the way we were brought up, to go to Mass on a Sunday and go to confession and receive Jesus in the Eucharist. When any years went on, the start of lost my faith when I became around about 16. That's when I took my first drink. I was 16. I found out that I was a man then, and I could go and do what I wanted. I went to England, I went everywhere. I started to stop going to Mass, saying the Rosary, all these things. The real part of my faith, I just lost everything. I had no hope in that, and I just and I just want to, before I married, that was when the faith was very weak. Drink was getting a big hold of me then, and my faith was very, very weak. Didn't care if I went to Mass or not went to Mass. But as the years went on, I just started breaking in there really into the family, into when I got married. I was travelling through England, and I came home when I was about, I think I was 23, 22, and I met Mary. I met Mary when I was 23 at a dance, and I was drinking very heavily at this time. And I come in the night I met her. That was the only night wasn't drinking. The night I met Mary, I wanted to dance very late. But we're going with all the 2 years, and I asked Mary to pick me as a wife, and she said she would. She knew the situation. She knew I was heavy in drink. The very day before I got married, I was drunk that day. It was a sad way to prepare a marriage, but that's the way it was. I was drunk that same day, that day before I got married. But the start of a marriage life, Mary knew, and I knew. I knew within my heart that I had a problem with drink, but I thought I could stop it after I got married. That was my own inner heart feeling that I could stop drinking. That this is the answer to alcoholism. Was once I get married, it would all go. But as the years went on, and Catherine was the fourth child to be born inside I think it was about a year and a half after we were married. And this was, and in between this time, the drinking was still there, and the marriage, it wasn't shaky, but there was starting a lot of rise at this time. But when Kathy came along, I was so delighted and so happy from the first child, and I loved Kathy so much when she was born, but still, still I had to go to the pub. I had to get alcohol. I didn't know what it was, an excuse or whatever, but I needed alcohol to feel that it was really enjoyment. But as the years went on, the second child came, it was the same thing. The third child, it was the same thing right through. And to drink, it was getting really bad. And even to start off in the first communion, the first communion, confirmation, I would all dress up and bright. The children would come home and would get something to eat. And then Daddy would slip off to the pub and spoil the whole thing for Kathy and whoever was at that particular day. So that was my life story, right through my married life. It was drink and rouse. Mary and me used to fight and quarrel and call other names, and the whole, it's something unbelievable for two people to love each other. I still love Mary at this time, even with the drink, but to call our names in front of your children. And what kept me going was the children. I still had this great love for them. I wasn't worthy of the children. To me, the children, after I feed the drink, I was sitting in the room, crying out my heart was crying out for something I didn't know what I was crying out. I felt so guilty inside. I didn't deserve the children. I didn't deserve Mary. I wanted to change. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I was so confused for everything. And the thing that kept me really going, especially with Kathy and Tony and Jared, at that time they were older. After the drink, they used to come up and sit on my knee, and me crying inside my heart. And Mary used to wonder, after the rouse I caused, why, she even said it, why did the children come up onto your knees? I didn't know then, but I know now, that it was God was using the children to console my heart, because he knew what was in my heart. They used to come up, they didn't speak any words, just crawled up or crap up or whatever, and they just rested their heads on my shoulders or whatever, and I felt in my own heart I wasn't worthy of this. it was just sheer love I was getting out of him, which I didn't know it was God's love. For years in past, that was my married life, and coming up to 1994, it was September, coming up to September 1994, I knew within my own heart that I was breaking the children's hearts and breaking Mary's heart, and I knew I went back to school at this time, and in my own heart, I didn't want to leave the children, didn't want to leave Mary, because there was so much part of me in there that wanted to love the children and to love Mary. But I decided that I would definitely have to leave. I didn't tell Mary the children this, but within my heart I said, I just have to leave. I can't. I promised them and promised them and promised them and promised them, but still I broke my promise. 2 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, but they knew in their hearts that Daddy would break their promise. Every time I broke my promise. But I didn't want to break my promise. I didn't want to lose the children. I didn't want to lose her. Oh, that was really... Just at that time, and coming up to that September, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't even get around to say, Mary, I wanted to go, but within my heart I still had to go because there's so much hurt. The children was a mental hurt. The whole 17 years of mental hurt for Mary and the children. Like, when Mary took her vows to marry me, like, she took a vow for better, for worse. It was worse for her, and it's a grace. Well, Mary, she should be up here. It's a grace for her to stay with me for 17 years, with an alcoholic for 17 years. But that September, I was back to school. I knew there was no point in making promise because all the promises were broke. So I really didn't know how. I didn't really know God then. I didn't even know him. The only light that was still in the faith was the rosary, was a Blessed Mother. That was the light was still lit in our house. I have to thank my mother and father, but that was always in my heart. I lost the faith, but the rosary came back when I got married. That was one thing I tried to say at home every night was the rosary. That was the light. I know today that was the light. That's why I can't thank. I don't deserve. This is the glory of Jesus and the Heavenly Father and the Holy Spirit today. This is not for me. This is their glory and our honor and our Blessed Mother. So that the rosary went on in home. That to me this was the light that never dimmed. A mother was always there, and I didn't know it. I knew God, but I always thought God was far off. His mother was far off. I didn't know how to really. Even through the drinking times, I didn't know how to ask God or how to ask His mother for the grace or whatever I needed. I just cried inside my heart. Every time that drinking session was over, I cried with pure hurt for hurting the family. That was good. But that September anyway, keep going on there. I said I would definitely have to go. And it was in around that time, I just went off a drink before the children went back to school. I couldn't bear my children went back to school and for them to know me, to come home from school not knowing if I'm going to be drunk or if I'm going to be out or where I will be. So I definitely had the mind made up to go. So continued on anyway till roughly, I don't drink then, roughly to November. And it's wonderful the way God works. I didn't know then that it was God. But roughly in the middle of November, there was no drink up that. And it was still in my heart to go, but I still didn't want. But November came, and Cathy was the girl, the bulletin, the parish bulletin. Cathy read out in the parish bulletin that there was a bus going to Mallory the following Saturday, whatever. And I knew now God was using Kathy, because Kathy was the oldest, and she was the one getting most hurt, and she was the one was resting ahead of my heart for all them years. She was the one giving God's love to me, and I didn't know it. But when she read out the bus was going to Mallory the following week, there's something immediately went into my heart. I didn't know what. I never would get on a bus. I wouldn't, that pride thing, I wouldn't get on a bus. I never was on a bus from my last school. But there's this thing, as soon as she read out there's a bus going to Mallory, there's this thing went into my heart. But I just forgot about that even. I said it's like everything else, a plan or whatever it'll be. I'll forget about it the next day. But the next day came, I think it was a Monday, it was a Sunday, yes. Next day came, this thing was still in my heart, this phone, to go and ring this number to go to Mallory. So found that Monday evening, I did go and ring the number. And the next thing I knew, I was in Mallory. This was roughly the middle of September. And all I wanted to do, I knew nothing but Mallory, I knew nothing but Shrine, I knew nothing but nothing. It was just this pull me there. And Geraldine, Kathy was the one who was to come with me, but she couldn't come. She was working or something on at that time, and Geraldine came to me. So I headed off. I didn't know where I was going or what. Headed off on her and down to Mallory, done the vigil. All was in my heart. I didn't even know to ask the lady or whatever. I just said, just help me over Christmas. Please don't make me drink over Christmas. I didn't really know. I thought Our Lady was far off, or God was, or I didn't know what I was saying. But I done the night vigil, came home. Mary and all the children was wanting to know how I got on. But it was inside me, I could feel it change. So I started to feel a peace. I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel this peace, this calmness. I was never calm. Was think I'm never calm. Always an edge, and always wanting to looking for the right moment to get out. When that urge came on me, I would have to go. No matter how much love, and I had some love for my children and Mary, I would go through steel to get that drink. I would go through anything to get that drink. But I could feel the change in my heart. Especially that was a Sunday evening we came home. I could feel it change, and you could nearly feel it in the home, that change. But fair enough, but through Christmas, no drink, no nothing. So there's a bus heading to Mallory on the February. It was in the feast of her. There's a bus heading down in the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes on the 11th of February. So I decided, just in my heart, just to go down and thank Our Lady, just to say thanks for getting me over Christmas. Mary, my wife, came with me this time. And Tony, my son, the fellow threw his arms around me before I left here and told me he loved me. That was his save. We done the vigil that night. Went to Mass the next morning. Came in. I got it just to say goodbye to Our Lady. Just looked up, and all of a sudden, there's this lovely gold, like a doorway, an arch, just like the arch is down the back of the hall, of pure gold. And I kept saying to me, "Do you see the gold around Our Lady?" They said they can't see any gold. And this gold came slowly and slowly, just like a door arch. And I couldn't see Mary or Tony at this time, but I was keeping talking to him. But the whole thing, I was keeping drifting towards the gold. I could just feel drifting towards it. And I stopped talking, and the whole thing, everything completely in silence, pure silence. When once the gold had finished around Our Lady's statue, Our Lady came out of the statue. Slowly, and everything started to change. Now, it's so hard to describe. You hear people talking about, we talk about a new era. To me, this was like a new era. Everything turned so beautiful, like a forest coming in like a lovely green. Our Lady came right out. Bernadette was kneeling in front of her, snow white. And this is so lovely, this starts here today. Jesus was on the right-hand side with his apostles. I didn't know then, but later on I knew Jesus as the divine mercy. That's how he appeared to me, as the divine mercy, and the apostles around him. So I was, this peace, while this blessing was happening, I didn't know what was happening. I was just absorbed in this lovely peace. It's just pure peace. And I was looking at the vision, Our Lady was just hoovering around in the pink, just what I know now with the Mother of Mercy, and Bernadette, as I know now, the purity. And I could feel this great peace. Then all of a sudden I could just feel like a ring. If you ever wore a cap, if you took off your cap, I felt this ring around my head. I could just feel the blood, like a blood transfusion coming straight down from my head right to my toes, just like it represented to me then was just like the old going away and the youth coming in. It was beautiful. When I got onto the bus, after the vision was over, got on the bus, I could not speak. I was just, everything was so peaceful, lovely, peace. It was just peace. I didn't want to speak, didn't want to say nothing. I just was just transformed in real peace. But home that night, Anna, there wasn't much talking on because Mary and children, I'm sure, was wondering what was happening at this time. So the next morning I got up. That's when it really happened. Next morning I got up. I have a wee workshop outside, just a humble wee place. I do a bit of polish in the corner there. It just reminds me of Jesus and Joseph out in the wee stable. Jesus learned the sharpness and Joseph. That's how humble a wee place it is. So the next morning I went out into my workplace and I wanted to pray, I wanted to sing, I wanted to love. I didn't know what was happening. Mary thought it was, this man, there's something serious wrong. But I knelt down in my house, in my own workhouse, I knelt down and I prayed and I was full of love. And all of a sudden, I could feel this touch on my shoulder. I knew in my heart it was a heavenly touch. And as soon as it touched, I didn't know if it was Jesus or Mary or angels or whatever, but as soon as it touched my shoulder, my heart burnt. What was sheer love? What was sheer love? I started to shout and sing, and I was just full of joy. I just was lifted. I could not feel I know now it was the Holy Spirit that had me lifted up. I could not feel my feet on the ground. It was so beautiful. I said to Mary, if this keeps up, I could not live in the world. I could not. I was so much full of joy. I wanted to sing and tell everybody in the world what way I felt. That week was some week. What was some week. But what happened? The graces Mary and the children got, they got these graces before me. I knew within myself I was purified. I knew the whole thing was gone. At an early stage, the children says to me, and Mary says to me, I know that you will never drink again. What a grace. What a grace for the family to say that to me. I know, Daddy, that you will never drink again. I knew it in my heart. I was completely transformed. When I was having that experience in the house, when my heart burnt, I was absolutely on fire. It was pure love. The first gift I got was to pray for priests. Love priests. What a gift. That gift I have still today. That grace never left me to pray for priests. But I knew why it was to pray for priests. Our Lady, the thing about the whole thing, she was so gentle about it all. She did, nothing was rushed. She didn't rush me to confession. She didn't rush. Everything was took so peaceful. But the sad thing was that Mary and the children they believed, they got the grace. They even said it before I said it. They knew I was healed. But Mary's family and my own family, I want them full of joy. I was positive that they would be full of joy. So sad, they didn't want to know. They did not believe. They lost all the graces that God had for us. That's when really I started to come back to earth. When people, there was no, my family, it was said in the early stages, I think it was Jerry's confirmation, that Jerry will be a drunkard until the day he dies. So sad. Judging. God had different ideas. But that was the start of my conversion. It wasn't... When I knew there was something happening before Christmas and I wanted to marry first, I wanted to confession at Christmas, but I held back. I held back. I wanted to receive Jesus, and I held back in confession. But Our Lady, our Blessed Mother, she was the one. She took me gently to confession. Gently. I was a man after I was 16. She was the woman who took me back to my child. She took me back as a child. That's what I am here today. I am a child. She took me back to childhood. She took me straight into confession. It was an open confession. I had no fear. I had nothing but love. Just nothing but pure love. I knew Jesus, as soon as I would speak, all the sins would be forgiven. I wanted confession with pure love, open confession. What love that? That day was sheer love. The priest blessed me. And I could even feel that day when my sins was all told, I could just feel just a new person, just like the way I felt that day in the house, just like a young man. I went home in so much joy. I said to Mary, that was my first confession. It was so beautiful. Mary went the next day, just the same way as I went. You know, it was just, the grace was, God was working through me, right through to the family. But that was my start. Lady Ann, she really took me with love to her son in the Eucharist. I never wanted to receive Jesus. Maybe twice a year, whatever. That was it. Twice a year, Easter or Christmas. Wanted confession, but never made a confession. Wanted to receive Jesus twice a year. The children used to say on a Sunday, why does Daddy not go up? That's what the youngest one would say, why does Daddy not go up? I couldn't give him an answer then. That was my first time from my child, from I made my communion, that I made a confession with love. And as I know now, the vision, there's no speaking in the vision, there's no speaking, there's no talking, no nothing. But our mother, I didn't know what the vision was then, but I knew. When I got the grace to pray for priests, like I know now there's the grace to pray for them, I had to go through them to confession. Just as we see, I'm just looking, I was just handed the Divine Mercy here before I come up with so much love. And it was Our Lady just took me straight, I was a sinner all my life and never confessed. I was dirty. She took me to her son to the mercy and washed me clean. Jesus, the Divine Mercy washed me clean. That's so beautiful. But I just want to go on by the way I am today. Our Lady has took me now. At this point, I'm in the Marian movement of priest. I'm just a little child of Mary's. My family's all in the Marian movement. Our Lady, she doesn't work fast. Everything was so slowly. She brought me into the devotion of Divine Mercy at a very early stage. And the very first devotion she brought to me, she's so good, went to chapel one morning and she come out of Mass and look at the wee bookshelf and here, what do I see? The first 5 Saturdays, but who was in the picture? Mother of Mercy. What love. Mother of Mercy. I just want to finish off with this love. This is something that I just want to finish. This is my birthday, and I'm sure Jesus and Mary won't mind me telling this. Just hold on. Whatever we private things between Jesus and Mary, whatever, but there's so much love for our Blessed Mother. From that day, Mary used to thought I was small, I used to bring roses into the chapel. I'd always loved to bring a rose to Our Lady, and the secret, it was Our Lady of Lourdes, altar up in the front of the chapel, and the Sacred Heart was the back. I always took her that flower, but this Sunday anyway I took her in this flower, and Jesus, a white flower, and just saying the only thing, I was thanking Our Lady and everything, and left Our Lady, and I was just thanking Jesus, and back down to the secret heart, and thanked Jesus so much for his mother. And what did he do? He smiled. He says, thanks for loving my mother. Thank you. Fantastic, Jerry, well done. Fantastic.
In order to tell you part of the journey of my life, I'd have to go back to the time I was about 12 years old. And it's the first time I noticed someone praying, and it was my father. And he was kneeling down, and his lips were moving, but I couldn't hear any sound. And I said to him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm saying my prayers. He said, I'm saying my prayers to Holy God. And I said, but where is he? He said, he's up in heaven. So that was fine. I always related. God was in heaven. I was on earth. That was it. I always thought if you were good while you were on this earth, you just had to be good. And when you died, you went to heaven, and that's when you met God. A couple of years went by, and my father sadly died in 1972, and I was the oldest of 9 children. So I left school at 13 years of age and hoped to go on to secondary school. But at that stage I was asked to stay home and help look after the children because my mother had to work. My father was very ill. Not knowing any better at that time, I decided, well, I could do this, and I did. When my father died in 1972, the youngest of the children would have gone to school, so that gave me time. In that time, you could work at 14 or 15 or whatever, and that's what I did. I went to work and I came home. My mother worked and while the children were in school. So one thing my father passed on to me at that time, apart from prayer, was the fact that you looked after children, you did your best for them. Above all, you kept them safe, and he passed it on to me. So through looking after them for so long, I became very, very attached to them, and I loved them. When the years went by, when I was 16 years of age, I met the man that I later married. I married him actually not very much later, at 17 and a half, and I moved off to live in the country. I came up on a visit one time, and when I arrived home, there was a new presence in the home. It was a man who my mother had taken up a relationship with. I instinctively had a dislike to him, but I put it down to the fact I couldn't pinpoint what it was, and I thought because I loved my father so much that this is what it was. I made myself accept him and be pleasant for my mother's sake, because the children were very young and I knew she needed someone. I lived in the country for about 3-4 years, and my husband came back to work in Dublin again, and we all returned home. At this time I had 2 children of my own. I think I was 21. We used to make daily visits to my mother's house because I didn't live too far away. And every day I'd go there, I'd wonder why there would be a row in the house when I arrived. I used to think it was me, and because of the way I felt about this person. I later realized it was because I was in the way. The rows would start over absolutely nothing, and I would leave, and I'd say, I'm not going back again while he's there. And for a while I didn't. But then I would think of the children, and I'd go back. And during this time, I noticed that some of the things that were happening with the children were a bit cruel. And I would always say. But when I did, I was asked, please don't say anything, because when you go, the children will fall victim to this. So for their sake, I tried not to say too much, but sometimes I couldn't help it. So after a while, my mother took ill, and in 1979 she herself died. I, of course, thought I had nothing else to do, only take the 5 younger children to live with me. But when I went to do so, I was told that I couldn't. My mother had married this man a few months before she died. And I was told then I could take maybe Marie, who would have been about 11, and this was by a solicitor. But then I got another shock, because the solicitor told me then that this man owned the 4 children, the last 4 children. I could have got over that, only the fact the little girl that came to stay with me and started going to school and was doing, as I thought, the normal things that children did. But I noticed that sometimes she didn't have much interest in school. She didn't have much interest in anything. And she was more times in trouble than she was in school. And I often felt guilty because I knew she was actually my own father's child. She would have been the youngest of my father's family. And I often felt guilty because I knew I'd spend time, and I knew my father and what he had given me. She had missed out and all that. So we went on anyway, and she wanted to leave school at 15. And I tried to encourage her to stay, but she said no, she couldn't concentrate in school and she didn't like it. So someone offered her a job, and off she went to work. She was 3 months in the job, and she met a young lad that worked with her. Again, when I met this chap, I instinctively got a feeling that I didn't like. I said nothing. Eventually, we had a row because of what was happening. She wasn't coming home, and I was worried. And I was only in my 20s myself, so I didn't know really how to cope with the situation. So we ended up having a terrible row, and she decided she'd go back to my mother's house, where there was only a brother living at the time. So when I asked her, well, as the row was going on, she told me at that time that from the age of 6, which is when I would have got married, to the day I took her at 11, that this man had been abusing her. She never told anyone because she was too frightened. And I said to her, well, why, when you lived with me and you knew this didn't go on, this wasn't normal, didn't you tell me then? And she said, which was true, well, you often sent me to see how the other children were. And every time I went, he told her he would terrify her. And I didn't know where to go with this. So I took her and I brought her, as I talked to someone who could help her. And when they listened to her all right, and they told us that they'd be back in touch as soon as possible. Today we're still waiting to hear from them. We went, when we didn't hear, we tried every avenue, and we were told, because it happened a few years previous, there was nothing they could do. What happened then was, Marie, once you may know, if someone opens up at all, if the wall opens up at all, a crack, it starts to open very wide. And having no one to talk to, she started to tell me horrific tales, stories that had happened. And it wasn't once a week, it was every day, every single day. She started to tell me about the time when she was coming from school and she would hide. My mother worked all day, and she was told that if she said anything, she would have to go and live in her home. She was threatened that she'd be killed. And if you can visualize a 6 or a 7-year-old child not knowing any better and being frightened, then you might just begin to understand how she was feeling. She started to tell me every day And of course, I wasn't trained for this, and it was heartbreaking. Listening to different episodes of what had happened. So I started to think, well, how did I not know? And I didn't know. And what happened then was, I worried so much, I started to get very ill. I couldn't get help for her anywhere. I'd no one to turn to, and I thought there wasn't going to be any justice for her. Having said this, I was angry. It was easy for me, I suppose, to be angry, but she had no feeling. She didn't feel anything one way or the other because there wasn't anything there. In the meantime, the person she'd married had started being violent, and she felt, I suppose, she deserved this. There must be something wrong with me, and she'd stay there. Many times the police would come and take her out. I'd take him out, and I'd be sent for to help her. So this went on for a long time. One day, it dawned on me. I stopped trying to do anything after a while, trying to get help. But I was getting sicker and sicker myself. I was very ill. And it was from the stress and not knowing where to put the stuff she was telling me. So the doctor prescribed tablets, which I needed. And these tablets didn't make me like a zombie. They just took the rough edges away, and I could live every day. She continued on and had 3 or 4 children. But inside me, every day, every single day, I hated this man. And every day, I had a routine. I used to wait till everyone was in bed at night. At 2 o'clock, I'd go to bed myself. And I'd make this, it was like a long distance phone call to heaven, to God, because I still spoke to him. But I didn't think he could do anything for me. I thought you looked after yourself. So, every night I talked to him. I couldn't say the Our Father, because I couldn't honestly say it. Because I couldn't say, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Because I knew I'd never do it. And I knew I didn't want to. So, shortly after that, the tablets weren't lasting as long as they should have. If I got a month's supply, they were gone in 2 weeks. And every day I was taking more and more. And it was just to keep me existing, and to keep me more or less normal. I felt normal when I took. I couldn't be without them. And when the doctor would say, surely they're not gone already, I would always get them somewhere. This went on for a long time. And every night as I made that long-distance phone call to God in heaven, afterwards, I would plan of how I was going to get revenge on this man. And then I could sleep. But I had to be while I was there, because I knew, one way or the other, that I wouldn't sleep. I'd be up all night, thinking and going over and over. There wasn't a day passed that this didn't live with me. And the tablets helped in another way as well, because they helped me look after my own children, to which, of course, I can't remember about maybe 10 years of their life, because I was consumed with what had happened. One day then, I realized the tablets weren't going to work forever. I knew I was running short of places to get them. And people were starting to wonder about me, my own family especially. A very good husband who understood and who tried to help me as best he could. I started getting an eating disorder. I couldn't swallow food. So for a long time I was like this. When I realized that the tablets were running out, I started to panic, and I didn't know where to turn to them. So one day I was speaking to a friend of mine, and I was in her house. And on her mantelpiece there was a picture of Our Lady. And I said to her, "That's lovely." And she said, "It's Our Lady of Medjugorje." And I said, "Looks nice." But what I didn't say to her was, when I looked at the picture, I didn't see Our Lady, I seen Jesus, the face. So she said to me then, "I'm having a prayer meeting tonight in my house. Would you like to come?" And I didn't want to be rude, so I said, "Yes, I'll come." But I knew I had no intention of going. So I said, "Well, I already say my prayers and that's about it." So I went off anyway. The next day when I arrived home, there was a picture of Our Lady in the sitting room, and I was told a friend sent it around. So that evening I said, "Well, I better go and say thanks for the picture and apologise for not going last night." And I was making up an excuse. So when I arrived there, I knocked at the door and I said,